As Jim told you, my name's Sarah Kloss. I work for Shriners Hospital for Children. How many of you know what Shriners Hospital is? Gabe, you don't count. We have one Shriner in the room, so he should know what that is. Any other Shriners in the room? Oh, Jim. Sorry. I think of Jim as a diver, not a Shriner. Now, when our kids do participate, once we get them hooked, they participate more often and then have higher levels of enjoyment, specifically for informal activities, and SCUBA could be considered that. We also know that our kids who participate with a more diverse group of friends and volunteers and people that they can connect with, those kids actually do better in anxiety, depression, and those secondary medical complications we were talking about, and particularly if their participation is further away from home. Kids who have broader social participation, more social connections, have less depression. Broader social participation gives you a higher quality of life. Isn't it kind of true for all of us, right? If you think about it, this is true for many of us, whether you have a disability or not, but having a disability certainly compounds your issues. The other thing we see is that caregiver education is important. And so if you're working with kids, ensuring that their family members or their primary caregiver, oftentimes their mother, is aware of what recreation is available, how to access that recreation, how to get around the obstacles that may exist in order to ensure that their child can access those sorts of things. And the other thing that we know is that more intensive physical participation, so true physical participation, decreases the chance of those medical complications. And that's important to us as healthcare providers. Hopefully that sets the stage to have you understand why I, originally a non-scuba diver, was interested in adapted scuba diving for my patients. What I saw were kids who were really interested in trying to do something different, something they could share with their peers, and something for them that could be a lifelong sport. And at our facility, we offer all sorts of different activities, and our SCUBA program really truly grew out of our efforts to increase activities for our patients. So first we started with Discover Scubas. We put our kids in our pool. And for anybody who's ever been at my hospital, I have a nice small pool now. It's upgraded from the postage stamp pool I originally have. So our Discover Scubas were not impressive. Let me be clear. In the original pool, I couldn't fit more than 2 kids in the pool at a time. Like literally, we were all like, everybody take a corner, suck in your tank. It was tight. But what we found was, kids loved it. They thought it was totally cool. They kept talking about how great these little Discover Scubas were. So we added them to our sports and conditioning camp. We run a camp specifically for our kids with spinal cord injuries, a week-long activity for our kids, where we let them try all sorts of different sports in the goal of increasing their social participation and specifically increasing that physical participation so that we decrease the possibility that they're going to have medical complications. So for those kids who are coming to camp, we would do basketball, softball, you name it. We sail, we play sledge hockey. Every sport you could possibly think of, we expose the kids to and hope that something clicks. So we added SCUBA. In the very late 80s and early 90s, we added SCUBA to that program. We do program evaluations, and those evaluations from the kids participating in that sports camp kept coming back and saying SCUBA was their favorite activity. Now, based on what I told you about our pool, it's pretty shocking to me, because how much fun can SCUBA be in a pool that's the size of a postage stamp, that smells like chlorine, that doesn't have a single solitary fish anywhere, right? I mean, I think you all think that sounds pretty nasty, right? I do. But our kids thought it was awesome. So we tried to get an idea of why they thought that was so great. And they talked about water being the great equalizer. These are kids who primarily use wheelchairs for their mobility. I had a young man not long ago who I should have figured this out on my own, but it was a good, friendly reminder for me of why we do the work we do. We were in our bigger pool, and he's a quadriplegic, so different levels of spinal cord injury affect your body differently. So for him, all 4 limbs were involved. He didn't even have palmar grasp, which is what you're all using to pick up your glass of water or your coffee. Didn't have lateral key pinch either, so he couldn't have put my flash drive in for me. Very limited, just a little bit of upper body movement. Used power wheelchair for all mobility. He was in the water with us in our teeny tiny little pool. And at one point, he was doing great, moving around. We had his buoyancy going good. And at one point, I just laid on the bottom of the pool and I looked up and I waved at him. And then he just kind of hung around, moved his shoulders a little bit, kind of hanging around, doing nothing really exciting. If you were watching us, you probably would have been bored. If you'd been in the pool as me, you might have been bored. When we were done, he's ready, we pull him up, got to take out his reg for him, got to take off his mask for him, right? He doesn't have function to be able to do those things. And then I had to dab his eyes, because he had water in his eyes from the pool. And then I'm yabbing at him, because in case you haven't figured out, I'm a talker. And I have to do it again. And I have to do it again. And sometimes I'm a slow learner. So about the fourth time, I say to this young man, who's 17, by the way, "Are you okay?" And he says to me, "Sarah, that is the first time that I was able to move all by myself without a piece of equipment or a person touching me since I got hurt." That in and of itself is a powerful reason to put kids and people with disabilities in the water, to give them the opportunity to be able to experience some level of independence and to let water be that equalizer. My Shrine kids look like me and you when we're diving, and actually some of them probably look better than me. You can't tell the difference unless you look at their legs and see we haven't put fins on them. They look like us. And that is powerful from a psychological perspective, as well as from those other things we talked about with participation and decreasing medical complications and issues. So based on that, we thought, well, okay, we're crazy if we don't do something above and beyond those teeny tiny little pools, right? Because that's great, and that's a taste of it, but we know kids want more. So we connected with the Diveheart Foundation. I think you've all had an opportunity to meet Jim. When Jim came in to talk to us, he said, "I don't know a whole lot about kids with disabilities." And I said, "Well, rock on, because I know everything about kids with disabilities. I don't know a whole lot about scuba diving." And so we really came together. I had been running some programs and wanted to up our ante and get our kids doing more and get them connected to somebody who they can have a lifelong connection, who can help connect them other places so that scuba can be a lifelong sport for them, not just a one-time shot at the hospital pool. That's the important piece. So we connected together and agreed that truly our goal is we want to build confidence in our kids and we want to build independence in these kids and get them as active as we can. So for us, Diveheart has continued to provide those Discover Scuba opportunities. When I have a patient who, and as I said, our hospital is a regional hospital, so when I have a patient who comes in from Oklahoma for care and services and they want to try scuba, I don't have the ability amongst my staff and all of our expertise to be able to drop our jobs during the day and say, "Hey, we're going to go jump in the pool now. Can you hold clinic for a while?" So what we do is we connect to Diveheart and we say, "Hey, can you come in? Are you available at 4 o'clock this afternoon? Can you come next week at 2 o'clock? We've got a kiddo who wants to do a Discover Scuba, see what it's like, and have the experience either in our pool or, better yet, in one of the pools they've negotiated at a hotel or in the area that's a little bit bigger where our kids can move around and have a really good Discover Scuba experience." We also rely on Diveheart for HSA training and to make sure that all of us who are involved from the hospital level are connected appropriately with HSA and that we have our HSA buddy certs and that we are at a high level being able to work well with our kids and with our patients and able to explain what they can do, what they can't do, what their options are in terms of scuba. Our kids have opportunities to do certifications at a variety of different levels. Over the years, I have had patients with spinal cord injuries get PADI certified, get NAUI certified, SDI, HSA, I mean, you name it. Pick a bunch of letters. There'll be a few you put together today that don't exist, which in 5 years will probably exist as a scuba certifying agency. And we've had kids who have done so well that they certify just like you and I. And then we have kids who certify at levels that they need some additional assistance. Now, Jim and I will tell you two different things. Jim will tell you it's all about the scuba. I'll tell you it's all about the therapy. And the powerful part of that is the combination. And I think that's the piece that I want you to take away, that rehabilitation professionals, folks in the community who you can work with, whether it be your dive shop or your dive shop, people that you can connect to, you can have a mutual agreement and come at it from different angles, but a mutual agreement that will truly benefit people with disabilities and for us kids with disabilities. We do run a Diveheart trip for Shriners patients every year to give our kids an opportunity to get certification and also to give them an opportunity for that independence and that social and physical participation. I want these kids to be able to have an opportunity to travel and to travel away from their parents. Oftentimes when a kiddo sustains a spinal cord injury, they go right back to where they were when they were an infant. And if you can imagine if you had a child who was healthy, 15 years old, just starting their level of independence, and boom, sustains an injury, then the next thing you know, you're thinking, I gotta be with them all the time. No overnights, no going to social activities, no dances. You are really, as a parent, concerned about what could happen to your child. And we see that a lot with our family members. We want them to have baby steps to prepare for their kids. I want every single one of the kids in our program to be prepared to go off to college, live in the dorms, and not have mom or dad or whoever their caretakers are come along. If they're a quad, they can hire caretakers, but they don't need it to be their mother. So that's our goal. We want that level of independence for our kids. So we say, and we pick our kids specifically around goals. We look at what are the communication skills these kids need, and how can they get those? What kind of problem-solving abilities? What about enhancing assertiveness? The great collaboration between Diveheart and Shriners is that my patients and my families trust me impeccably. They will not hand over their children to Jim Elliott because initially they don't know Jim Elliott. They will, often reluctantly, and we actually have somebody coming with us this year who, for the third time, his mother has asked if she can come along, and I keep telling her no, but they will hand their kids over to me. But then my goal isn't to have those kids depend on me for all of their care and their needs. They need to learn how to ask those Diveheart volunteers. Can you help me with my legs? Can you transfer me out of my wheelchair? I need to get out of the sun. Can you get me water? Can you help me with my cushion? And that's where we all become part of a true group of folks who can be ambassadors, not only to the oceans, but ambassadors to the world of people with disabilities. That helps our patients meet their goals of learning how to interact with the world around them, particularly for somebody who has a new disability. And that's very powerful, and we can do that on these trips. You obviously heard all the research in relationship to our participation concerns, and we really want to increase our kids' activity levels. And then we also want to improve ADLs, activities of daily living. That's what that fancy term is for. I use Diveheart as a carrot. Now, some people may think this is a bad idea, but let me tell you, in peds it works. So if I have a 16-year-old boy who has paraplegia and he has enough function to do his own bowel program, and if anyone wants me to go in detail as to how to do a bowel program and what it looks like, see me after, I'd be happy to. But he can do it himself. But guess what? He doesn't. Why doesn't he? Because he's a 16-year-old boy, and because it's gross, and because he didn't have to think about it before he sustained a spinal cord injury. And if any of you were in this room became injured, you wouldn't want to do it either. You wouldn't want to have to think about pooping, and you wouldn't want to have to think about peeing every 4 hours with a catheter. They're not just paralyzed, it's not just about not walking, there's all sorts of other things that affect these kids. But if I've got a 16-year-old boy who, again, physically has the ability to do his bowel program, you can bet your booty he doesn't get to do a trip with us until he independently does it. And you know how bad that 16-year-old boy wants to go scuba diving? Bad enough to do his own bowel program. Now, does that seem mean? Or some of you thinking, man, she's a little rough. The reality is, do you want him when he's 32 living at home with his mom? With his mom still doing his bowel program? Anybody here want their mom doing their bowel program today? Anybody? Yeah. So it's a powerful thing we can do. We use not just our SCUBA program, but we do a downhill ski program, we have a rock climbing program, we have some other active recreation things that kids really want to do. And we say, it's yours, it's open, we will not create any obstacles, but here's what you have to do.